Monopolistic competition, the second topic in the micro theory. And we are going to look for how we can differentiate between consumer surplus and producer surplus. As well, we are going to look for the different types of price discrimination. What are practices that exist in real life, and what are the bundling and advertising rule in the monopolistic competition. Monopolistic competition means we have many sellers and they are having differentiated products. So as we did in the previous time, can we have a consumer surplus when we have a single price? This is called the single price that we have it, where we charge price star, which depend on the intersection between marginal revenue and marginal cost. So by determining the quantity by the intersection between marginal revenue with the marginal cost, we can determine the quantity of monopoly or the quantity for this market. We determine the price by looking for the willingness and the ability of the people to buy this product, and the area above the price that we determined according to the demand represent the consumer surplus. So if I put a price above this P star, this means that the consumer surplus will decrease, because he will pay higher prices and lower quantity. If we look for another strategy for differentiating the prices, then we have maybe a prices above the P star and the prices below the P star. But if we determine the price according to the demand and the marginal cost, then we can reach the price of the perfect competition, which is the best point, where we will have more quantity and we will have a lower price. So this is basically the consumer surplus, which is the area above the price determined according to the demand market. So if we proceed for the market strategy for having different prices, price discrimination, so we're going to practice charging different prices to different customer of a similar good. Let's say, for example, I will buy a mobile from the States. It will be different than the mobile from European countries, and then we have a different prices. So we revise with you the reservation price. What is the meaning of reservation price? What is the maximum price each customer is willing to pay for? The first degree of price discrimination, practice of charging each customer his or her price discrimination. So maybe I make price discrimination based on place. Maybe we are doing price discrimination based on time. Maybe we are going to do price discrimination based on units. We have different types. But the first degree is practicing each customer determine the price according to his reservation price. So after we know that the reservation prices, which is the different prices according to the willingness of the people, so we will see that we have this area will represent the consumer surplus of a single price. This is the area of the consumer surplus. If we look for the variable profit, which is the single price P star is a charge. So this is the differences of the variable of the markup that I can have it from the different types of market between the monopolistic and the perfect competition. So if I use the perfect price discrimination, the perfect price discrimination means the additional profit from producing and selling an incremental unit. What are the differences between the demand and the marginal cost? Different between the demand and marginal cost. So this is will represent my demand, and this is represent my marginal cost. So all these area will represent the variable profit that we can have a charging of different prices. So imperfect prices, what do you mean by imperfect? Firmly usually do not know the reservation price. If I don't know the reservation price, if I don't know the maximum prices, so this is called imperfect price discrimination, which means we're going to set different prices for different customers until we meet the demand with the marginal cost. Remember, we meet demand with the marginal cost. This means that we can maximize the profit of the producers. So this is one of the practice where we maximize the profit of the producer. So consumer who now pay P5 or P6, he enjoy a surplus because he wait for a longer time. Maybe he took it from another place. So he will have it with a lower prices and higher number of units. Second degree, what do you mean by second degree? Practicing charging different prices per unit. So the discrimination based on buying 2 units. So let's say I will go to H&M and I will buy 2 units of the product. and the third piece, I'm going to receive it for free. So this is called the price discrimination. So this is dependent on the block. What the meaning by blocks means the number of units. So the second price discrimination, as you see in this figure, that we have different blocks. Block 1, Q1, block 2, Q2, block 3, Q3. So when we look for the Q1, we have a very high prices because it is the lowest one number of units. And when we increase the number of units, we will have more and more quantity with lower prices, and vice versa. So there are also economies of scale. The meaning of economies of scale that we increase the number of units to achieve minimization of the average total cost. What are the meaning of the third degree? So after we finish the first, which is the reservation, the second, which is the quantity, the third will be dividing consumer to segmentation. So here, segmenting the consumers to different group according to their willingness to pay, according to the price they will afford to. Class A, Class B, Class C. So creating here different groups. So the third price discrimination is visible, it is profitable because they determine the price according to the customer. So maybe if I look for the first class, it's completely different than the economy class, than the business class when we are taking airlines. You know how much is produced, you know the total amount of units. So the marginal revenue for each group will be different than the marginal cost of another group. So let's look here for the creating consumer groups. So we are in need to recall back what we call it, the determining relative prices. So what do you mean by relative prices? We're going to compare creating consumer groups. What do you mean by consumer groups? So we have group 1, P1, Q1, P2, Q2, and the cost that I have it, which is, let's say, the cost of the airline operations and everything like that. So if we look for the rate of a change of the profit with respect to the quantity, so here we're going to make differentiation with respect to the Q and take it with respect to the cost, with respect to the quantity of the function of the cost until we reach marginal revenue 1 equal marginal revenue 2 equal marginal cost. So what do you mean by relative price? The price of group 1 with respect to price group 2. So let's say Liana, let's say for example, have a pay price 20, let's say for example, 20 because it receive the product with a different requirements. So P1, let's say for Liana, it's 20. And the other price for Ritaj or Sylvia, it is 10. So this is what we call it the relative prices. What do you mean by relative prices? So the ratio here, it is 2 to 1. What do you mean by relative prices? I'm comparing the price of the first group to the price of the other group, and this is what we call it relative price. Why we have different prices for different group? Because the elasticity of each one is completely different. So E2, which is the elasticity of demand, it's completely different from one group to another. So this is the point where we're looking for, is it equal or they are not equal to each other? Is the relative price is the same or they are not the same? So let's recall with each other an example. And this example is clarified in front of you. What we have here, a company of manufacturing selling t-shirts in two submarkets, two different places. Let's say, for example, Aswan and Suhaj. In one of the submarket, the company is labeling and have a logo, and the other one will have a price premium, the meaning of extra prices. The submarket is targeted to more prices conscious consumer who buy the t-shirt without this logo. And if we look for the retail prices, what do you mean by the retail? They do have a wholesaler and then we have a retail. So it is a 42 for this product, while another company is selling it with a 25. So now we have two different prices, 42 and 25. Okay. So if we look for this market research, they did a survey and they start to look for the price elasticity. What is the price elasticity? So he said for the hard prices is the elasticity is -2. And for the other product is -4. So we are going to recall the previous equation and we are going to compare between the two types of product. So if I go back a little bit, so how we can determine there is different prices if they are reaching the optimum level or not. So we will have a differences between our comparing between the two market prices. So in the previous slide, we use P1 to P2 and the elasticity 2 with respect to elasticity 1. So what I'm going to do, I will write the equation, the price of callaway price and the price of Arkwood price. And then I'm looking for the elasticity of each one. So callaway prices is 42 and Arkwood is 25, which is given in front of us in this equation. So do we have the optimal level of they are the best number of prices, they are the same. So we're going to substitute with the elasticity because the importance of the elasticity and the price is look if the product is price sensitive or not price sensitive. So with elasticity 2 and 4, they are highly elastic. They have different consumers and we have different substitutes. So dividing 42 over 25, so what is the relative prices is 1.68, 1.68. And this is what we call it the optimal price ratio or the relative price. When we do the substitution, pay attention that we're going to make the inverse of the equation. So the elasticity of the Arkwood, it will be -4, and the elasticity of callaway, it will be -2. I reverse. So in the numerator is 42, and in the denominator, it is 25. So we need to look for the relative, the optimal prices, and we look to the current prices that we have. When we substitute, we find it is 1.5. Since they are not the same, then it is not the optimal price. If the value I receive it, let's say, for example, if in the case, if I will assume another criteria, if I will set, for example, a price of 45, or let's say, for example, if I add, let's say, a price of callaway is 30, and I will divide it by another price to give me 1.5. So let's say, so let's 45. Yes, exactly. 45 divided 30, then it will be 1.5. Exactly. So here we will have the optimal level, but in this case, we don't have the same output, or that we don't have the same optimal prices, then it is not the optimal level. The current prices is not the optimal one. So after we reach the optimal prices, which is not equivalent here in this example, we will have another question. He is asking me if this company have a 1.5, let's say he is going to propose management consider the price of 25 to be the optimal prices and necessary to meet the competition. What the price should the firm set to this callaway label to achieve the optimal? So here I'm going to use, I need to determine the competitor prices. How can I determine the price of the competitor? So I'm going to substitute in my equation that I did it before if I want to reach the optimal level. So what will be the competitor price? So as we substitute previously and we said 45 divided by 30, it will give me 1.5. Now I'm going to find what I need to find the 25, the price here, which is the unknown, divided by the given price, and I need you to find how much of price that must be giving me the optimal level. If I use this substitution, so if I multiply 25 times 1.5, then it will give me the 37. So the optimal prices for the other company, it will be 37.5. But unfortunately, they were setting it at 42. So this is the meanings of, this is the suitable price. But if they put a price above it, this means that they have a market power, they have a dominant strategy in the markets. Okay, so this is the second practice or the second application for this book. Do the company use this in reality? Do company do this in the reality when they are comparing between different types of product or setting the prices in the markets? So another example, a lower seat side cinema, let's say charge a 3 price per ticket for children under 12 years. Okay. And then we go for a $5 per ticket for anyone over 12 years of age or older. The firm has estimated the price elasticity of this product is 1.5. Calculate the elasticity of the demand of tickets if the prices are optimal. So if I'm going to substitute for the first group of a price of 5 and the other group with a price of 3, and we said that it is the optimal level, then this means that I can find that this means optimal, that 5/3 equal. But if it is not optimal, then it will not be exactly the same. They are not equal. We are going to figure out what is the relative prices that we have it here. So by substitution, we can determine the elasticity. So the other group have a higher elasticity than the group 1, which is 1.5, because it is 2.25, which is giving me higher elasticity. We have a higher substitutes effect. And here, for sure, when you are asked for advice, you can advise this decision maker who are setting the prices for this activity to decrease the prices in order to increase their own revenue in this market, if we are working in the optimal level. Okay, let's proceed with another example. And let's go, for example, for a zoo who have hired an assistant in setting the admission price. Pricing policy. How can we set the pricing policy if we work in a place, and how can I set the price policy? So in a zoo market, and you have two different demand. If you go to Disney, you have different prices and different tickets for different number of usage. One demand curve applied to those age of 12 to 64, and other for children and senior citizens. So we have two groups here. So we are talking about a third-degree price discrimination, grouping of people. So he gave me here equation, and it is very interesting because he have a constant, and it is as percent of the change of a quantity, and it is an inverse relation demand clearly, and it's very clear as you see here. So the price of the adult, it is 9.6 and negative 0.08, the slope with respect to the quantity of the first group of the adult people. And he gave me, so this is demand, and he is giving me marginal return of this group, and then he do a differentiation for this one. How he got this one, how he got this equation, if we can write here. So it is, how can I get the marginal revenue? So as you know very well, that the total revenue is price times quantity. So what he did, this is the total revenue. So if I want to find the marginal revenue, then I do differentiation. So the total revenue, how can I find it? So it is 9.6, the equation of the first group, 9.6 minus 0.08, 0.08 QA, okay? And then all these equation, I will multiply times QA. Very nice, QA. So then equation will be 9.6 QA minus 0.08 QA with the power 2. So if I want to do differentiation, then this is giving me the marginal revenue, 9.6 minus 0.18 QA. So this is how I got the marginal revenue. So if we look for this equation, so it is 4Q minus 0.05 QC squared. So if I do differentiation, then it will be 4 minus 0.05 times 2, then it will be 0.1 QC. So this is the most important part in the equation. The question here, if the zoo decide to price discriminate, and what are the profit maximization price and quantity in each? Why they are going to discriminate? Because they are setting for the adults with a price, and they are going to set for the senior citizens or the children for another price. So what is the condition for the optimal price discrimination? Marginal revenue equal marginal cost. What is the condition? This condition, it is very important. Marginal revenue equal marginal cost. So the marginal revenue equals 0. So I will use the equation 9.6 that I have it in the upper part. 9.6 minus 0.08 time, sorry, again, the 9.6 minus 0.16 with it, which is the marginal revenue. And I will equate it is equal 0. Marginal revenue equals 0. This is the optimal prices for the first group. So 9.6 I equated to determine what? To determine the QA. What will, if I have 0 quantity, what will be, if I have 0, if I have marginal revenue equals 0, then the quantity will be 60. Okay, so he assumed here that the marginal cost equals 0. So I equate 9.6 for 0.16 QA equals 0. I determine the first group, how much will be the quantity of the first group. So how the marginal cost can be for 0, because all they spend in the zoo or in the infrastructure, it is the fixed cost. But operational, it is minimum. If we look for 9, if I want to find how much the price, so I will substitute in the equation with the quantity 60. So here, this is the first price for the adults, and the prices will be 4.8. How can I got it? By the substitution of the 60 in the equation, then it will be 4.8. If I'm going to look for the second group, what is the second group? Marginal revenue. So I find it by differentiating the total revenue. So I will equate it with the marginal revenue with the marginal cost, which is equal 0, and the marginal cost, it is given here to be equal 0. So here after substituting, we find that the quantity is 40, while the first group is 60. And when we use this 40 number of units, I can find the prices for the second group, which is 2. If I'm going to substitute with the equation price times quantity, then I can find the 360. Some people said how we create this equation in reality. How we can find this equation in reality? It is by getting the data of the prices, by getting the data of the cost, by getting the data of the constant fixed cost, which we have it, and then we can make an estimation for this equation. It can be run by the regression, it can be prepared by econometrics techniques, so we can find this in real life. So the total revenue here, assuming that the cost is 0, it's 368. So in this case, we can say that the cost is 0, and then the profit will be 368. Okay. So we did a price discrimination example concerning the monopolistic competition. What is the elasticity of demand of the quantity in the same case? What will be the elasticity of demand? Are these elasticity consistent with the profit maximization and the marginal revenue elasticity? So I will recall from the previous part that the equation that we received at 9.6 of a QA, and we're going to to calculate the elasticity of each one. So I will do here inverse demand. So I will use this equation PA. So I will take PA. I will take the QA on one side in order to put the equation in the terms of constant and find the slope in order to find the elasticity. So I start by the equation. I change to have the quantity on one side. So the equation, after rearranging, it will be QA equal 120 minus 12.5 PA. So this is my equation. Since I know that the elasticity, the slope times the PA over QA, so I think it is very clear that the change of QA over change of PA, which is my slope. How can I got this slope? This is the slope that when after I arrange the equation, it is equal negative 12.5. So it is very nice. So I know that this is the 12.5. And do I have the PA? Did I find the prices previously? Did I find the quantity previously? Yes, I find it in the previous part, and I can substitute for the equation. So if we substitute for the equation, so it is, if you want to find the elasticity, it is 12.5, which is the slope, and the 4.8, we find it from the pricing from the previous slide, and the quantity, which is 60. So after substitution, we find that the elasticity of the adult will be 1 unit elastic. I can do the same for the price of the children. And when we use this one, we are going to recall the equation. We are going to do the inverse, get the quantity in one side. So it will be 80 minus 20 PCS. So this is 20, which is represent negative 20, which is represent my slope. And I have 2 over 40, which is the prices and the number of units. So the elasticity as well for the kids, it is -1. Yes, it is consistent. The pricing, it is optimal. and the profit maximization required that marginal revenue equal marginal revenue equal 0. So here I can find, okay, so we find these different practices and we find the prices for different groups. So if you remember price discrimination, this means that we're going to divide the consumer into different groups with the separate demands to find each one optimal prices and each one optimal quantity. And this is what we did, optimal prices and optimal quantity by the determinations of the intersection between the marginal revenue and the marginal cost. Marginal cost usually depend on the total quantity. So if I'm dividing them into the group, so the marginal cost of the first group, let's say 5%, the second group 20%, the third group 30%, and so on. So after we determine the relative prices, what do you mean by relative prices? As you see, we have a demand which is elastic and we have another demand which is inelastic. So here the groups, the first group with the demand D1 are not willing to pay too much, not too willing to pay. It is inelastic. While it is unprofitable to them to sell them because the prices would be too low to compensate the rise of the cost. If I have a huge increase of cost, على سبيل المثال, if let's say the energy prices increases, cost of production increases, so this means that the cost increases, so I cannot put a price at very, very low prices because it will reflect negatively on the profit. So is it easy to discuss how can price discrimination of the third degree be effective in different groups? This is an important question because if I have a higher cost and I have a higher margin, if I have a higher cost, then I have a higher marginal cost. And if the people or certain segments are not willing to pay that much, it is very important that it will not be applicable. Why it will not be applicable? Fatma is not willing to pay that much. She is not interesting to pay that much. So if I didn't determine the pricing well and I didn't determine the marginal cost well, this is will reflect on unprofitable business. So this is the examples of real life. So let's say, for example, if we go for technology and innovation, they have the power to set the prices high because the people are in need to this product. But it is not usually in all cases because if you go for Netflix, for example, their operational cost was very, very, very high. And they put a flat rate for prices, let's say $8, $9 for a longer time of usage. But this is attract businesses, but it is not profitable on the short term. Maybe on the long run, when they have a huge number of subscribers or usage, then the quantity will increases and the prices they can over increase with a small marginal in order to cover the high operational costs that they have. So this is what we call a price discrimination. But do Netflix do price discrimination? They are not doing price discrimination because they set flat rate. Maybe if I have a platinum gold subscriptions, it can give me a different case. So this is a very interesting example concerning the cereal. Coupon provide a mean of price discrimination. What do you mean by coupon? If I have a coupon, or if you receive this coupon that you will have a discount of 20% or 30%. In any advertisement they use this. What is the relation of advertisement with the micro? Because here I'm giving you a different price. Maybe I'm going to buy the cereal with $5 or $10, but if I have the coupon, then I will have a discount by 10%. So this is can be one of the example of price discrimination. So the rebate program work the same. Rebate, which means I'm going to have a discount. Only those consumer with relative price sensitive. Relative price sensitive, which means that the product is elastic or inelastic. Price sensitive, it is elastic. Again, the program means the price discrimination. So if it is elastic, so I divide people to different groups. So in the cereal, when you have a coupon, so this is kinds of a price discrimination. As well here, economics of coupons and rebates continue. So if you look for this price elasticity, so the tissues market is 0.6 for the non-user, it is 0.66 user. So if we see here for the shampoo, for example, non-user is 0.8, but for the user it is more than 1, it is elastic. If we look for the gelatin, if we look for the conditioners, so we will find it is having a high. So price elasticity of demand for user versus non-users of coupon. So if I have a coupon, then I have a substitutions effect. So this is what reflect my revenue in the market, and I can attract more customers. Airline fares, another example. So we said the coupons, we said another products such as the shampoo, the cream, which we have substitutes. Let's go for the airline fares. Travel also, if you are going to book for from New York to Los Angeles, recently the first class fare was about 2,000. The regular economy fare is 1,700. But if I'm going to book it, could boat for little for 400. So these fare represent price discrimination. So if I have a first class, different prices than economy class, and then the business class. So this is the different prices discrimination. Another example for different. So I like this example very nice because this is the fair prices or the elasticity, as you see here, reflecting the fair prices on the elasticity. So the first class here, for this group of people, if you look here, this is the elasticity of income, and this is the price elasticity. So for me as a first class person, so it will be inelastic. It is very important for me. For me, for coach class, it is inelastic. For me, for a discounted, it is normally closing to one. But if we look for the income elasticity, which is positive 1.2, it is normal product and it is an elastic product. And it go the same for the other fair points. So why they do price discrimination? This is a question. Why they do price discrimination? Let's proceed after we explain the price discrimination of the airlines. So we have a different example. Let's go for bundling. I like the concept of bundling, which means another type of getting more profit, practicing of selling two or more products as a package. Let's say here he is giving me a film company, and previously when they were selling DVDs or they are going to theater, so they were offering different prices. So in theater A, as you see, so Gone with the Wind, it is $12, getting Gritter $3. Theater B, it is $10,000, and the gains of this profit, it's 4,000. If the film are rented separately, the maximum prices could charge for the Gone with the Wind 10,000 because the charging more would exclude the theater from B. So the maximum price that could be charged for Gritty. So if you look here for Gritty, it is the maximum charge for them. It is 3,000 when the theater is going to offer Gone with the Wind. So this is when they are going to sell it only one product. Yani this alone or this alone. This is in theater A and this is in theater B. But suppose the films are bundled. What do you mean by bundled? They are together. So if they are bundled for theater A, so 12 plus 3, it will be 15. And for theater B, they're going to receive 14,000. So this is the return. Therefore, we can charge each theater 14,000 for each pair of film and earn 28,000 K. So it is better for me. It is better for me to bundle than selling it alone. So if you have two things together, or then let's say, for example, in the products of McDonald's, if you have a combo products, so he's bundling for you fries with the sandwich with the Coke. So this is the bundling. But if you look here, 14 and 14,000 and 15,000, this is will give me 29. But they can charge the same 14 here and 14 here, but they will going to receive 20. And this is will more guaranteed than selling 20 with a 29 profit. It is better to set it as a bundle, to sell the products and to maintain your profit. So this is the concept of bundling, and this is the meaning of selling more products in order to have more profit that we have in the market. So what is the relative valuation? So if you see here, the relative valuation that if we bundle the films, the maximum price could be charged for 13,000 yielding to a revenue. If it, instead of setting the prices at all the two products with the 14,000, I'm going to bundle both of them and selling them at 13 to gain more market share, but not more revenue. To get more market share, but not more revenue. So the strategy of renting valuation recently has been destroyed for the films after the streaming option and the approach of the technology. So this is why Blockbuster, for example, due to their not updating or not accepting the changes, they got out of the market and they lose their market share. So the reservation prices, how can we determine these reservation prices? So you see here in this criteria, we have here rent 1, rent 2 for different types of product. I'm trying to make bundling here. So if I'm going to bundle with a point A, so it is will be pay 6 and 3.2 for the rent for another product. Previously in the 90s century, in the 90s and the 2000s, we were renting the DVDs and we are taking films from the stores, but this is not existing anymore because the digitalization replaced all the things. If I'm going to look for point B, so 3.25 with 8.25, this is the bundling here. If I want to have higher numbers, so I'm going to have more pricing. So I'm trying to link getting more number of rents, then it will have to pay more prices at the point C, as you see here. So this is the link. So if you see this matrix, it is very interesting matrix because I'm trying to segment people according to their preferences to buy. So if I start here, consumer buy both goods. This is the target. So if I set, let's say, for example, a price of 10 and 10, let's say, for example, and it is very interesting example. So these people are going to buy these two products. So they are going to pay 10 and for both types of product. But if I go for consumer 2, they are going to buy only product 2, where we are going to rent more. So I will buy, let's say, for example, for 10, and let's say I'm not interested to this one. So if I'm looking here, so it will be 0 and 10, but here I will not buy any of these. So this is what we call it the matrix, that we can set prices according to the groups. Who are the more interactive? Who are the classification? If I go for supermarket and they are asking me which product you prefer, which item you want to like, would you like? So I don't like this or that. I'm not interested in all this. So I'm classified in this stage. Why? Because I need to look for the concentration and the preferences of the customers of the other three groups. When I set the other three groups, then I can get different pricing for them. And let's say, for example, in Z Park, for example, they will have different types of tickets with different charges. So if I'm going to have more games, then I'm going to bundle more number of games. I bundle more number of games in order to increase my revenue. So this is the bundling. So bundling is similarly to the relation between P prices of two products. Let's say rent 1 and rent 2. So consumer do not buy bundling. Yani I'm not interested to make this bundling. I want to only one item. They are not interested at all in buying two products. So I can determine the boundaries, the maximum that they are looking for. They buy the bundle only if R1 plus R2 is at least larger than the P1. When I'm going to buy, when they are bundling, when they're the price they are offering, it is the pricing that they are offering me for a single price. It is the price they are offering me for a single product is larger than in the market, which means that if he is going to offer me for 10 and I'm using to buy the products with 11, so I will be, that doesn't matter for me to buy it because he set the prices higher and I would take it with the lower prices. So it is no problem. I don't care unless I'm rationalized in consumption. So relative valuation عايزه اشوف which matrix or which concentration they are preferring to buy these products only or they are preferring this product high. So because the demand are perfectly positive correlated, yani perfect positive correlated, and two products are working together. Two products are highly related together. But sometimes they are inversely correlated. Let's say, for example, I will buy the pasta alone and there is a perfume. So they are negatively correlated. But if I'm looking for the pasta and the macaroni itself, the pasta and the macaroni, they are positive correlated. But when we compare it with the perfumes, they are negatively correlated. They are completely different. So it is preferable when they are positively correlated. If the demand is negatively correlated, bundling is ideal strategy. All the consumer surplus can be extracted. because the firm does not gain any of the bundling, it would earn the same profit by selling the two goods separately. But they are negatively correlated. If they are negatively correlated, perfectly negative correlated, bundling, it's an idle storage. All the consumer surplus can be extracted because I will benefit from setting these products. Relative prices, relative valuation. Here in this example, when we go for the positive correlated, let's say the pasta and the macaroni, so they are positive correlated. But when he create another branch of product, it will increase the numbers of units that we are having in the market. Okay, so this is the positive correlated and the negative correlated. Movie example, it is one of the interesting example as we see here. So consumers A and B are the two movie theater. The diagram show the reservation prices from the two products. So if I have Gritty and the Wind, this are the two prices for the 10,000 and the 12,000 of the Wind, and the 3,000 and 4,000 for the Gritty if you are looking for. Mixed bundling or pure bundling, it is selling two or more products both as a package and individually. And selling products only as a package. This is called the pure bundling. One of the very interesting example in real life when they are providing me with the pure bundling, selling products only as a package together. So the consumption here can be increased in the market. So mixed bundling, the last things that we have it. Mixed bundling means let's compare by three strategy: selling goods separately with a price 50, another price with 90, selling the goods only at the bundle of 100, or they can mix the bundle together so you can have it with $100. So if you see here sold separately 50 and 90 and 89 and 89, this is the different prices strategy. But if I set as a bundling, this will create more profit for me. So mixed bundling, one of the best practices in real life in order to have also as well more market and more profit in the market. Thank you so much.